Okay, so to begin this DIY, you're going to take your 6 document frames. Now with 4 of the frames, we are going to be removing the cardboard backing, the paper, as well as the glass. Also, we will be removing these metal tabs that keep everything together. Now with 2 of the frames, we will remove everything except for the glass. The glass will be glued in to the frame. Okay, so everything is removed from the document frame. All I have left is the outer frame. Now I'm going to take one of the cooling racks and I'm going to turn my frame upside down to turn it over so the back is facing me. And then with the cooling rack, I'm going to lay it down flat so those 4 little feet are sticking up. I'm just going to, as best I can, center the cooling rack to the frame. So I'm just going to try and get this middle line pretty much in the center. Now, a lot of times the cooling racks are a little bit wonky, they're not straight, but do the best you can. So once I have that in place, I'm just going to take my Sharpie marker and then I'm just going to mark where I will be cutting with my cutters. So once I have that marked, I'm just going to take my cutters and I will cut along the line on each side of the cooling rack. So I have finished cutting my cooling racks. Now remember, you will cut 4 of them for 4 of the document frames. 2 of the document frames will be with glass, but you need to do what I'm showing you 4 times because they are what will make up the walls. So now that I have cut the cooling racks, we are going to glue them onto the frame. So you just want to make sure that your frame is turned over so the back of the frame is facing you, and then with your cooling racks you want those little parts that are sticking up, the little feet, to be facing towards you, so that when these are glued on and we glue our walls together, all of the feet will actually be on the inside of the lantern. So I'm just going to take my glue gun and glue each side, and then just 2 little spots in the middle with my glue, and then we will move on to the next step. Doing this to 4 of the document frames. Now the other 2 I have to glue on the glass to the frame, and then once I've done that, we can begin assembling our lantern. My document frames are ready to go and ready to be put into place. I have my 4 with the cooling racks and then my 2 with the glass. So now when you're putting this together, there's 2 ways that you can do it. You can either have your lantern so that it's shorter and wider and have the frame this way, or you can have the frame this way so that it's taller and thinner. And this is the way that I'm going to be making the lantern today. Now I just want to give you a little tip should you decide to make it this way, or even if you want to make it this way. What I learned in doing this is that I ended up cutting my cooling rack all the way to the edge because I figured that it would be stronger by doing that. The only problem with doing it in that way is that when you go ahead and butt your frames up to each other, you're going to have a gap because there's the glue in the way, and the metal from the cooling rack is going to stick out a little bit, so you're going to get a gap. Now with my lantern, I am going to be covering this seam anyway with some jute twine, so it really doesn't matter for me. But a little tip when you are making this, and I'm going to be making another one and I will be cutting it a little bit shorter, is when you go to cut your cooling rack, instead of measuring it to the outer frame, measure it to this inner lip where the glass sits into the frame. This way your edge is free, and when you go to butt up your frames together, you're gonna get a really nice, clean, smooth finish. But I've already cut mine to go to the edge and glued it in place. And being that I am making my lantern with the frame standing up, you're not going to notice as much of a gap, because when I did glue my cooling rack onto the frame, most of my glue was along here. Whereas here, which is the area that I'm going to be gluing the frames together, there was only a dab of glue in each corner and one in the center. So now when I butt up my ends, there still is a gap, but it's not as much of a gap. As you can see. But again, I'm going to be adding some jute twine onto there. So in my case, it really doesn't matter, but if you wanted to leave it plain and you were going to glue the cooling racks in the same manner that I did, then at least this way, you don't notice the glue as much and the gap as much. So now I'm gonna go ahead. I've already done 2 of my walls. I've glued them together. And the way I did it was I just had one frame and then I butt the other one up to it. Now I also went ahead and added a bead of glue all the way down the center here. And again, I will be covering all this up with jute twine just because I really like a nice finished look when I do my projects. I don't really like seeing glue and open spaces. I like it to look really finished and polished. So it does take me a little bit longer with DIYs, but the final results I'm much more happier with. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my other 2 walls together and then add them to these 2 walls to make my base of the lantern, and then we will move on to the next step. Of the lantern is put together. Now I just wanted to show you how this frame butt up to this one, then this frame butt up to this one, and then this frame butt up to this one. I also, once that was pretty dry, I went along the inside in every corner and I just added some more hot glue. Now I don't mind adding all this hot glue because I will be hiding it with some jute twine. So I'm going to go ahead, grab my jute twine, and I will begin working on the corners. Okay, so before I finish wrapping the base with the jute twine, I wanted to just explain to you what I'm doing so that you'll have a better idea should you decide to make this yourself. So what I need to do first is cut 16 pieces, or I need to make 16 jute twine braided ropes. And all that is I take 3 equal lengths of jute twine. So I'm going to measure where I need to glue them. I cut 3 equal lengths, tie a knot at the top, braid the rope, and then tie a knot at the bottom. Now, when I do that, I end up with this, and I have this little tassel hanging at the end, but I don't want this. So I'm just going to very close cut that off, and then take my hot glue, just apply a little bit of glue just to keep that jute twine from unraveling, and then you will end up with it looking like this. So now I need to make 8 of the same length to cover the corners of the outer corners. So here I've done 1, the outer corner as well as the inner corner. Okay, so just all along in there. Then I need to make 8 of the same length to cover the top and then the bottom of the inside of the document frame. So I won't lie, it is a little bit of work, but I definitely think it is worth it once you complete all of that, because we cover up the glue, but not only are we covering up the glue, we're actually reinforcing the base and making it a little bit stronger. So I think it's worth it, and I hope you think so as well. So I'm going to go ahead, glue all my pieces on, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I have finished gluing on all of my jute twine to the inner and outer corners of the lantern, as well as the top and the bottom of the lantern on the inside, and I'm really pleased with how this has come out. Again, I think by adding the jute twine, well, for one, it covers up a lot of the glue. Number 2, it really gives it more of a farmhouse feel, more of a rustic feel. And then number 3, it really does add an extra durability to this lantern, because now it also has the glue from the jute twine holding everything together. So again, I'm really glad that I ended up putting the jute twine to this. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is working on the top part of the lantern, and for that I will be using my 2 document frames that I glued the glass into. Now I don't want to just put them as they are, because for one, the back of the frame is not really finished. Not that that would really matter with the farmhouse look, but what I'm going to be doing is taking my jute twine, and I'm just going to single strands glue it all the way around, and I'll do about 3 to 4 rows on the inside of the document frame, and then on the side that is facing out, I will probably just do 1 or 2 rows just to give it a nice finished look with the jute twine, so that everything is tied in together. So I'm going to go ahead and do these 2 document frames, and then we'll move on to the next step. on the inside or the back of the frame, I did about 6 rows of the jute twine. I just think that that looks really pretty, and what's great about this is that even though it's on the inside, because it is glass and it is high, you are going to see through to it, and I think it looks really great. And then on the front of the frame, I just did 2 rows of the jute twine to border right next to the silver trim, and I think that looks great as well. So now I have to glue these two together, as they are going to be the roof of this lantern. So how I'm going to do this is I just set my lantern on top of this cardboard, and all I did was I made 2 marks. So right at the edge of this side, I took my Sharpie and just made a mark, and the same with the other side. Right on the edge, I made a mark. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2 frames and I'm going to line them up to this mark. And then once I have them in place, I'm just going to take my hot glue and then run a bead of glue along the top. Well, first just a little bit on the inside so they adhere there, and then I will run a bead of glue on the top, because I also will be wrapping jute twine around this middle part to cover up the glue and just to give it a better bond. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next. As you saw, I just wrapped the jute twine around the top. I just started right at the top here and then just went under and then wrapped it over, glued it on the top, went under, wrapped it over, and I glued it only on the top, but then I ended up turning it upside down, and I just added a little bit of glue to the inside here and just press that down, just to keep the jute twine nice and snug in the top. But again, very pleased with how the jute twine is looking on the top of the roof. I think it looks really cute. So now I'm going to take the top piece and glue it on to the base of the lantern. Okay everyone, so we're getting close to the end. So now I'm going to put my roof on top of the base of my lantern, and all I'm going to do is take some E6000 glue and just put a few dabs on each side, and then I will take my hot glue and then I will apply some of that to the sides as well. Then I will just place my roof on top, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, so I have glued the top on, but as you can see on the sides, I don't know how well you can see, but there is a little bit of a gap there. Okay, so I'm just going to, again, the same as I did on the top of the roof, I'm just going to add some glue, some hot glue, and then I'm going to wrap it with the jute twine to give that a nice finish. So I have finished applying the jute twine to that seam where the roof and the base of the lantern meet. I've done this to both sides and it looks great. So I'm really excited to show you. However, I have one last step that I need to complete, and that would be using my Main Street Wall Creation sticker from the Dollar Tree. I am going to apply this to my lantern, and then once I have cleaned up the glass, applied this, I will show you what the farmhouse lantern looks like, all decorated and ready to enjoy in my home. So I hope you're excited, because I'm sure excited to show you. Okay everyone, so here is the final reveal of my farmhouse, actually Dollar Tree farmhouse lantern, and I am so pleased with how this has turned out. I am just loving this. I think for the size of this DIY and for how much I spent, now I'm in Canada, so I spent just a little over $10. That's with the jute twine. Without, if you have some on hand, it would even be less. So again, for the size of this DIY, you really cannot go wrong. It is so beautiful, and it's just a great piece to have to decorate throughout the seasons. What I love best about it is the glass on the top with this frame here, where I can change it out with the wall stickers that the Dollar Tree carries. I love the stickers, and I always like to find new ways to use them, and definitely this is one way that I will enjoy using them and displaying them in my home. So that is it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this DIY. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as always guys, take care, and I hope to catch you in my next video. Bye-bye.